Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry. Today's video is going to be all about High Zodiark's trial, which is the culmination of the High Dragon trials that have been slowly releasing in the game about every 3 months or so since launch. Pretty cool that we finally arrived at this moment, and it took me a couple days to take this fight down. It is pretty challenging, unless you were using the spin method. So while the intro plays, I'll talk a little bit about that since I think that was a very interesting lightning rod in the community. Some people were very against this method and some people were very in favor of it. If you're not aware, basically the AI was programmed for Zodiark in such a way that one person could continuously spin him in a circle and he would never attack, and the other 3 players could just pile on and attack at range, making sure basically that you would be able to get a clear. So this was a pretty big oversight on the part of the devs, I would say, and it actually led to Zodiark getting taken down. Honestly, I don't have a strong opinion on this one way or the other. I feel like it kind of blurs the line because there's so much AI manipulation that we learn to do that's part of this game. Like, we've rotated other bosses before, like Sabnok is a really famous example. So I think it's mostly an oversight on the part of the devs. I don't really think it's fair to blame community members who are taking advantage of this to try to get clears with some of their favorite units when we use AI manipulation a lot in the game already. So that's why I say I don't know that this is quite an exploit, but I'm kind of glad it's fixed now. It means the fight is as properly challenging as it was intended to be. And yeah, this fight in its entirety actually ended up being pretty hard for me. It took me quite a while to kind of wrap my head around what was going on. I didn't get to participate in the spin runs really because I didn't play the first day very much. I had work. So I didn't get into this until after the fight had come back up. And basically, you'll see here my first clear and my first Deathless. Thankfully, there were people on our Discord who had very, very strong adventurers. And I think that's one of my big takeaways with this. This is a very demanding fight. It has either the highest or maybe second highest HP of any of the High Dragons. I want to say it's the highest at around 2.4 million. So I think the only boss that has more HP than this is high levels of Light Roy in the Mercurial Gauntlet, and maybe some of the raid bosses, of course. But basically that means that you do need to do a lot of damage to this boss. At the same time, there are some unavoidable damage segments, Shadow Blasts, and also some Cursed Realms, which are like red markers that are rectangles, either vertical or horizontal. And while those are up, certain characters are sometimes imprisoned, so you can see that now. Basically, the combination of the high amount of unavoidable damage plus the high amount of damage you actually need to deal to High Zodiark means that a lot of the people who are clearing very successfully right now have extremely invested units and kind of the meta units, if you will. So those include Floor, who has incredible DPS against High Zodiark because his base paralysis res is 0. Yachio, who performs really well for the same reason, and both of those adventurers have good co-abilities that help with DPS. Summer Cleo is another really great adventurer for this. Her skill haste can come in handy even for your healers, for your DPS units. She also has Paralyzed Punisher, which it's pretty easy to keep High Zodiark paralyzed for a large part of the match, so she's going to be doing quite well. But besides her, since she is ranged and kind of needs Gilgamesh to survive with ease, Halloween Elisan is the other adventurer I've seen used quite a lot. Her HP co-ability does make things a lot more comfortable for everybody on the team. It means that you can afford to make a mistake and not just get one shot. So you can see here that we kind of made a mistake where, unfortunately, we baited the poison. And the other thing I want to point out that makes this fight difficult is mistakes escalate. You can see how we all have purple flames on our characters. Those have been commonly referred to as spite so far, that's what I've heard. And basically, each time you get hit by something, especially I think if it's like a move that could be avoided, so like a dash or like a poison pit, but I don't think the small dashes do it. I do think the tail wipe does it. Every time you get hit by a move like that, you'll get a flame around you, which is basically an unavoidable amount of extra damage you'll take every time High Zodiark does a screen wipe move. So you'll be able to see that here. Shadow Blast happens, and there's actually like 2 hits of damage. One of them is the base damage that does, and the other one is the unavoidable component. So I think the strategy right now is try to bring some of those high DPS units. Many times people have gone all out with their augments even to bring those units to a very high power level. I anticipate this opening up in the same way that other high dragons have opened up over time. So there are still lots of things we don't have access to right now, like weapon augments, dragon augments. Maybe we'd get some new adventures for this, a light skill damage dragon, maybe a facility or reruns of past facilities for people who missed those. So there are ways in which I think this fight can be broken open, but personally I didn't have much success running with off-meta or different adventurer combinations. It's definitely doable, it's definitely been done, and you'll see that there's a good amount of time left in our clear here. This was my very first clear, and because this last phase is kind of confusing, I didn't really know what to do here, but basically on that particular flames, High Zodiark will randomly, or at least as far as I know it's random, we don't know what triggers it yet, or at least I'm not sure, he'll either do a breath or he'll do basically a marker that one person can take. In that case, he did the breath, and we all used our dragon to avoid dying from it. This final flame, though, that where the flames spawn in separately, is kind of hard to avoid, and it often ends up being extremely chaotic. So part of the problem with the lower DPS team is mostly just the fact that you end up playing out the harder parts of the quest where coordination is very important. So for that part, High Zodiark will spawn in the flames in succession, but also he's going to spit out rows of poison that somebody wants to bait away from the characters who are clearing flames out, because you need 2 zones of flames to dodge his breaths that he throws out, so that you can point him in one direction and move toward the other area that's safe. So now I'm showing my first Deathless. It's the same team comp, the same people playing. We kept at this for quite a while. We got 2 more clears that were not Deathless, but basically this one ended up working out. And so you can kind of see a little bit of adjustment in our play. I tried to learn as I was going as Hildegarde, when I could use skills, when not to use skills, when I could save them. I'm still not particularly adept or versed at how to cleanse curse. The reason I decided to play Hildegarde for this was mainly just because I actually had a Jeanne d'Arc that was max unbound that I had randomly gotten over time, not something I had tried to unbind with Sunstones, but it all started back when I was summoning for Gala Cerise, and I didn't get her. I spent maybe 40,000 Wormite or more total, didn't get Gala Cerise, but in that summoning session, I happened to get my Hildegarde and my first copy of Jeanne d'Arc. So it kind of worked out in a way to where I can clear this now with her. You don't necessarily need or want Jeanne d'Arc, but that's the best dragon I had available. People have also been using High Jupiter, who has a nice dragon form, able to inflict a good amount of damage, increases Hildegarde's DPS a little bit. And then the other dragon that I've seen to be really good on Hildegarde is Popstar Siren. Popstar Siren kind of got a bad rap because she has a bad dragon form, but she is able to buff the entire team's strength and defense by 40%. And when you're using your dragon for something like tanking a marker, or the Cursed Realm attack that High Zodiark does, well, you know, at that point, you're not really in dragon form for very long, and that's a pretty big contribution from a healer to your team's DPS. So I've seen some clears with her on Hildegarde that look really good. That's something I'd like to try if I happen to summon her. But because that was my only invested light dragon, and otherwise I just had Lindworm, I really wasn't prepared to try clear this with anyone else at this point. And honestly, the fight is challenging enough that I think it's going to be a while before I take this on again. It might be when we actually get the Shadow Mercurial Gauntlet and I start investing more heavily into some light adventurers. I do have some Sunlight Stones, but I don't have Cupid, and I think I'd like to save those for a light skill damage dragon. So that's pretty much all I want to say about the fight, my experiences, my circumstances with it. It was a very enjoyable fight, honestly. It reminds me a lot of High Brunhilde's Trial, but I do think it can be kind of frustrating if your team is lacking DPS, because at some point it feels like there's not that many options for you. I will say we did also try some no healer runs, since I figured my Lindworm Halloween Elisan might be enough DPS if we were running without a healer. That didn't go too well. It looked like we were still hitting overdrive very late, so I think even for that you do want more powerful adventurers, but it is possible. There is a lot of incidental healing in light. There I got a tip that when you tank that with a dragon to just stand still, and you can see I was able to avoid taking damage from the sludge, which was kind of nice. Here we were actually kind of in jeopardy from the Shadow Blast that Zodiark's about to do. I was supposed to Jeanne d'Arc just to give defense to my team, just in case, but thankfully Halloween Elisan used her dragon and was able to save herself, and that reminded me that I would have been better off using Jeanne d'Arc there to protect her with the defense buff, so I immediately transformed, but obviously too late. Everything's getting chaotic again, a lot of purples on the screen. I'm just hoping I'm not overlapping with somebody and going to die here. I kind of run off to the corner, and basically that is how I was able to get my first Deathless. So Hildegarde was able to get the job done. Probably not the most exciting clear or role to play, but if your teammates make any slip-ups, honestly her healing is very good to try to let the team recover. Her shields are helpful, her regen is helpful, and her curse cleanse is crucial for characters who are running without curse res, and that's often a good idea because the Heavenly Holiday Wyrmprint will hit your DPS pretty hard. So I'm going to show off the other adventurers that were used in this clear. You can see just how invested these were by the fact that they didn't need to run the print, and I wasn't running the print either on my Hildegarde. Basically, I was running a Study Rabbit with max HP augments, a 0 Unbound 5-star weapon, and also a max Unbound Give Me Your Wounded for some extra healing and defense at full HP. So only Yachia really needed to run a print there, and I do think Yachia is a little bit on the squishier side along with Floor, but either way, we were able to get the job done. So one of the cool things is after you clear this trial and the other High Dragon trials, there is actually a special epilogue that you can view. So I'm going to switch over to that in just a moment after getting my first epithet from the Endeavors menu. If you don't want to see that epilogue, feel free to stop watching now because that's going to be the rest of this video. I don't want to spoil anybody who is super interested in seeing that for themselves for the first time. All I'll say about it was pretty cool. I'm glad that the name Dragalia is finally getting invoked more in the actual plot of the game, since I think we often forget what that means. I'm super excited for what the next chapter is for Dragalia Lost, what types of bosses are to come. I still hope that Chthonius might be a 6th High Dragon Trial and regular Dragon Trial, just because I think that would be sweet. But I do want to have other types of endgame content. Now that this is sort of wrapping up, it does make me wonder about what's next, and like many people, I think that the sibling fights or sibling trials with the other successors to the Alberian throne would be pretty sweet, honestly, especially if it involves their dragon form. Like, imagine a fight where they start off in their human form, maybe there's some ads coming in, and when they hit overdrive, they shapeshift. That would be really, really sweet, in my opinion. So I just think there's a lot of potential there. Another thing that I think would be cool is like raid boss variants of some of the high dragons so that more people could get in on the action. I just think it would be cool to see like an oversized high dragon or maybe even 2 bosses in one arena. That's always been a dream of mine as far as raids go. But that's pretty much going to do it for this video. This will play out. I feel pretty triumphant about the clear that I was able to get this weekend in the first week of this content. I think for now I'm going to focus on High Jupiter since I still want to bump up my Fafnir to level 16 before I really dive into High Zodiark, and maybe by the time I do, I'll be a little bit better prepared to do so. Other than that, of course, I still have to work on my Wind Fafnir for Eleonora, and eventually I have to figure out a way to actually clear this trial with Eleonora, which feels like a huge task by itself. But once again, thank you all so much for watching. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you next time.